Rolling with my homie. You love me, don't you? Yeah? Okay. Hey there guys, my name's Megan if you're new here, and if not, welcome back for episode 25 of Killer Weekend, where each week we'll discuss a true crime case and you guys can feel free to leave your thoughts in the comments box below. If you like all things true crime, supernatural, UFO, conspiracy theory and all that good stuff in between, then please hit that subscribe button and I'll be here for you every Friday with our Killer Weekends, and on and off every couple of Wednesdays with a bonus Weirdo Wednesday episode where I'll discuss something strange I've heard. Ooh. I will leave a small disclaimer at the beginning of this episode. It does involve details of violent crime, sexual crime and, oh no, bad language. If that's a trigger point for you, then please do turn away now. So how are all you beautiful people? I hope you're locking your doors, hope you're being safe, and I hope you're not talking to strangers because we've talked about this. Also, I know it's super sunny outside guys, but don't be leaving your windows open, okay? That's just asking for trouble. Speaking of it being super sunny outside, Scotland is actually getting a little bit of nice weather. And I know you're probably looking at my hands and saying, Megan, why aren't you tanned? Well kids, here's story time. Because Megan, as we all know, or if you're new here, you might not know, I'm terrified of flies, okay? It just is what it is. I don't like them, they don't like me. So during the summer, I'm chilling, I'm enjoying the sun, and what do I know? But the flies are out in force, ladies and gentlemen. Yes, I'm talking about the fly epidemic. That's a real problem in the world right now. So therefore, I have to go everywhere with this. It's a state-of-the-art, gorgeous fly swatter with a little bit of sparkle tinsel wrapped around it, so I can be glamorous and also deadly. Pretty much, gang. It's been a really traumatising couple of days for me. I was outside in the sun, actually writing this episode the other day, and lo and behold, I heard a little buzzing and I was like, oh, what could that be? Maybe it's a bee? Please let it be a bee. But it wasn't a bee. It wasn't a bee. And next thing I knew, I had a little buzzing in my ear and I was like, ah, lovely. It's in my hair. There was a fly rubbing its shitty bum hands in my hair. Safe to say I screamed for about 45 seconds and nosedived into the grass trying to get it out of my hair. It's not really a good experience. I have a dog. There may have been feces on the grass from my dog. Safe to say I've not left the house since. But anywho, speaking of crazy true crime, there's actually been a crazy case over in Athens a few weeks ago regarding a woman named Caroline Crouch. So Caroline Crouch was savagely strangled in her own home in Athens in front of her 11-month-old baby girl, and her husband, who is a pilot, was actually tied up in the other room. Their young dog, their little dog, was also strangled, which broke my soul, sadly. I really, really love dogs and that's just horrible. But yeah, it's a wee bit weird. There's some facts of the case that aren't really adding up. There's some testimonies by certain people who were in the house at the time. So I'm wondering, was this a burglary gone wrong? Or was it a wee bit more personal? Police have said that they've spoken to the family therapist and that this has given them crucial evidence. So therefore, I'm starting to think, I mean, I'm not saying it is the husband, but if it was the husband, but we'll see. We'll see what happens in this investigation, and yeah, I'll keep you updated and maybe do a wee episode on it. But I just wanted to say rest in peace to poor Caroline, and I hope they get the answers that they're looking for. Speaking of modern crimes, this week's episode only occurred back in 2019, so only about a year and a half ago, and it's one of those ones that when I was reading up on it, it just shocked me. It kind of goes against everything that you teach yourself as a true crime addict and who you can trust, or better yet, who you can't trust. I know myself as a true crime addict, I'm constantly told to be less paranoid and to trust people more. But how do you know exactly who is worth trusting? I mean, guys, you could be sitting next to someone right now and have no clue who they are. I'm talking about you and you. Yeah. You don't even know who he is. He's a stranger. But in all seriousness, that's exactly what we will discuss in this week's case. This week, guys, we will be discussing the brutal rape and murder of Keeley Bunker. Keeley Bunker was born on the 7th of September 1999. She was the second of 3 children to her mum Deborah Watkins and her father Christopher Bunker. The family grew up in an area of Tamworth, which is actually a borough of Staffordshire in England, and it's just a stone's throw away from Birmingham and also very, very spooky theme park Drayton Manor. Keeley was extremely close to her younger sister and her older brother Kieran. The family were super tight knit. However, at a young age, the family realised that the relationship between Deborah and Christopher wasn't really working out, and they actually moved on with other partners eventually. And this didn't break up the young family at all. If anything, it made them kind of closer. You know, the kids could spend time with their dad and his partner and his family, and then vice versa with their mum. They went on amazing holidays. You know, they went to Benidorm in Spain. They also went to Tenerife and spent a great time at the water park Cyaaaaa Park, which, can I just say, side note, I've been to Dubai, I've been to Florida, I'm not flexing, I'm just stating facts. And also, Cyaaaaa Park, best water park in the world. Keeley Bunker also had a great relationship with her extended family. It was very, very apparent from her social media that she was super close to her aunts, also to her younger cousins and her older cousins. She was always kind of posting pictures of her little cousins on her social media, and yeah, she was just very family orientated. You could see that, you know, at that age, 19, 20, a lot of young people are all about going out and partying. They don't really bother with their family, but that wasn't Keeley. Her family was everything to her. She also had some amazing friendships too, and her friends would describe her as completely selfless, a really giving person. They would say that she didn't have a bad bone in her body and she would never have a bad word to say about anyone. So just all round a really positive person. When Keeley left Landolfort Academy, she had a dream of working within childcare. I don't know if it was all the time spent with her younger sister or her younger cousins, but yeah, she just had this need to work with children. I mean, me personally, can't imagine anything worse. I love my nieces and nephews because they're mine. Anyone else's children, no thank you. But yeah, she loved kids, and her family even said that eventually she wanted to go on to be a mum and have a big family of her own. She just loved that feeling of a family unit, and that was something that was really important to her. With this career path in mind, young Keeley, I mean, remember, she was only like 20 at this time, had actually organised an interview for herself to become a classroom assistant, and she had organised this for the 19th of September in 2019. She was so excited about this. She had been preparing for weeks and weeks, and this would be her dream job. The interview was actually scheduled only 12 days after Keeley's 20th birthday, and because of that, that week itself was going to be quite a busy one for Keeley. She had pre-arranged to go to a concert with one of her friends, Monique, so they had agreed to go to the concert on the Wednesday night on the 18th, and then the next day on Thursday the 19th, Keeley would go to her interview. The concert they were going to was a rapper named H. So I feel about 95 years old right now because I have no clue who H is. So 1 minute, let me Google, okay? Let me Google. Okay, I've just spelled it wrong. That's a good start. Oh, okay. Okay, so folks in the US, this is what you think English men look like, okay? This is what English men actually look like. Quite a difference. See it? Yeah, not quite the same. So let's look up some lyrics by H because I feel like they're super, super special. Okay, so here we go. It's crazy how I'm living. I lost a couple screws. Blowing clouds up in the room. Now I'm off to the moon. Still got a bit of youth in me. I'm always in the mood. When I'm in the studio, I don't want no one in the room. Okay. So that's H, and our little Keeley, she was a fan. She was his #1 fan. And I'm not here to judge anyone's taste in music, you know. Back in the day when I was 19, I was obsessed with a band called N-Dubz. Yes, ladies and gentlemen. And if you know N-Dubz, then you'll know exactly what I'm saying when I recommend my personal favourite song, Love for My Slum. Yes, ladies, that is Love for My Slum. That was my favourite song by N-Dubz, and particularly I loved frontman Dappy. Now, Dappy actually used to have a saying which was na na na. At the beginning of every song he would just sing that randomly, and I actually had a t-shirt that said na 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 because I was such a hardcore N-Dubz fan. I literally used to go to any gig that they had in Scotland, even if there was only 4 people showing up. I would be coming to the front, I'd be screaming his name. So yeah, if you are watching Dappy, just kidding, don't. I'm engaged, so we can't do that, okay? So for Keeley, this concert was the stuff of dreams. It was the best way to celebrate her 20th birthday with her friend Monique, and they were so excited about going. You know what it's like when you're getting all pretty for a concert. She wore this gorgeous kind of orange like combo. It was like a little crop top with a little satin skirt, and yeah, she just looked absolute fire. The 2 girls made their way to the O2 Institute in Birmingham, and once the concert wound down, they then headed off to Snob's nightclub in Birmingham. And it did receive a refurb Snob's nightclub in about 2014, I believe, and it looks like a space station. Like, it's super cool. I mean, I'm such a nerd, the first thing I thought was Star Trek, but yeah, no, it looks really, really cool. The girls had planned to meet up with a couple of their friends there. One included was a man named Wesley Street, who was 20 as well. He was a long time childhood friend of both of the girls, and yeah, you can see it, they're just so happy. You know, Monique, she took a video of them dancing and laughing, and they're just having the best time. At around 2:40 a.m. in the morning, they all decide to leave and go back to Monique's. So Wesley, Monique, and also Keeley head back to her house in Tamworth. Keeley then changes out of her party outfit and into a pair of black kind of joggers, a little top, a pink Moncler jacket, and a pair of trainers. She wanted to be comfortable, especially for the walk home, so she put her night out outfit into a backpack she brought with her. And I can totally relate to that. I take my backpack everywhere. Everywhere I go, I've got my backpack. I'm like Dora the Explorer. Keeley decided at around 4 a.m. that it was time for her to call it a night. She'd had a great birthday night, but she wanted to go home and get some rest for her interview the next day, which Monique said, no, don't go home. I don't want you walking home this late at night. It's about a 20-minute walk from Monique's house to Keeley's home, and Monique just didn't really feel right about her friend walking home at 4 in the morning, rightly so. So Keeley was like, no, it's fine. Wes is here. He lives right by me. He can walk me, and then it means I'm literally only having to walk a couple of minutes by myself. And the 2 head off in the direction of Keeley's home. Monique, again, before they left, offered her to stay in her house, but she wanted to go home to her own bed. Just after 4 a.m, Wesley said that he then left Keeley at a phone box to head off in his separate direction to his home that he was staying at that night, and left Keeley to walk about a 5-10 minute journey on her own. This sadly would be the last time that anyone would see Keeley Bunker alive. The next morning, Keeley's mum Deborah is a wee bit startled because she notices Keeley hasn't slept in her bed. She maybe thinks that Keeley stayed at her dad's, so she phones him, and when she's told that she's not been there either, she goes a little bit into panic mode. She was obviously expecting Keeley to be home because she has this big interview that day, and she didn't think that her daughter would have been the type to just blow off and party all night. Keeley's mum Deborah and her stepfather Mark Enzer then turned to social media platform Facebook and try and garner some interest into where Keeley could be. They try and ask her friends if anyone's seen her, and they soon learn that Keeley left Monique's house at around 4 a.m. to walk back, but she had Wes with her, or so they thought. As panic sets in for the family, the interview time for Keeley comes and goes, and her mum just knows in her heart that something is not right. At 5 p.m. that night, Keeley is then reported missing to the local police. Keeley's family organise a local search of the area and try and retrace the steps that Keeley would have taken on her way back from Monique's. Whilst they're doing this, police are interviewing everyone who saw Keeley that night, and they start with Monique, her best friend. Monique does explain to police that as far as she was aware, Wesley was going to walk her the full way home, and it was said that a lot of their friends were really miffed with Wesley for the fact that he'd left her at this phone box. A lot of people were texting him, giving him absolute dog's abuse, saying how stupid he was for leaving this young girl to walk home that time of night. Wesley had already touched base with Keeley's dad and her uncle Jason Brown and said that unfortunately he had left Keeley at the phone box to walk the rest of the way home. Now, this is obviously not what any parent wants to hear, and essentially he left Keeley, who was only 6.5 stone and 4'11", so literally so petite, as perfect prey for a predator that night. Investigators themselves also drove along the roads that Keeley may have taken that night home, and Wesley helped them with their inquiry. He did a ride along to show them exactly where he left Keeley and exactly where she took off in the direction of her house. Meanwhile, her family and friends are searching on foot with a couple of officers as well, and the next stop they decide to search is Wigington Park, which is actually near a rugby club and would be kind of almost like a long way for Keeley to take home from the route that she and Wes were on. So they start searching the park, and quite quickly they make the discovery of Keeley's backpack. When they open up the backpack, they see that Keeley's night out outfit, the bright orange cord that she'd worn that night, is in there too. So they know this is Keeley's bag. But why would she have dropped her bag in the middle of nowhere in this park? Her family's fears are only realised when her uncle Jason Brown, who's on the search, sees just under the moonlight at 9 p.m. a little something glistening. He notices that it's actually a bracelet, and that bracelet is attached to a wrist. He then notices the dark hair, and upon closer inspection, he finds the deceased body of his baby niece, Keeley Bunker. Off-duty police officer Dean Reynolds, who was nearby the scene, said that he'll never forget the noise that came from Jason Brown that night. He just heard him screaming, "No, no, no." That's when the family knew it was over. The paramedics were called, but no one could revive Keeley, and it was quite apparent she'd been dead for a few hours. As the news spread through Tamworth of Keeley's death, everyone was absolutely heartbroken. You know, there was a big outcry of pain from the community, and people were even leaving bouquets with pink ribbons on them at the entrance of the park because pink was Keeley's favourite colour. People wanted to pay tribute to this beautiful girl whose life was clearly snatched. Keeley's mum, dad and her stepfather were extremely angry, understandably so. Who could have done this? And also, she was only walking for a wee 5-minute walk. Literally, was she not safe in her own hometown to walk for 5 minutes? The coroner determined Keeley's cause of death as strangulation, and because of the provocative positioning of her body, she was found with her trousers and pants around her ankles, and for that reason they did a rape kit. They were able to get male DNA from inside Keeley's body, and they sent that off to the crime lab to be ran against the criminal database. It was quite clear because of their findings that not only was Keeley strangled, but she was sexually assaulted before she was savagely murdered. Keeley herself, God love her, she had put up a hell of a fight, and her family should be so proud of her. Keeley had scratch marks on her own neck from where she tried to pry open the grip of her killer. Unfortunately, this was to no avail, but this allowed investigators to see that this was a violent struggle and that Keeley had tried to fight off her attacker. Police were on the hunt for this person. They wanted to get them behind bars before they had a chance to attack another young girl, and they noticed that not too far from the park they could see Tamworth Rugby Club in the distance, and they had CCTV. They scoured through hours and hours of CCTV just trying to find out who would have done this to young Keeley. They also began to go over everyone's original statements. So for example, that of Monique, that of Wesley, the people who were last to see Keeley. And yeah, some things weren't quite adding up. There was witnesses that placed Keeley's childhood pal Wesley around the murder scene at around 10 a.m. the next morning, so literally around 5 hours after the coroner believes that Keeley died. What was he doing there? Wee bit weird. Also, the CCTV footage that they did recover showed something a little bit conflicting also. Keeley was in the park walking past the rugby club, but she wasn't alone. No. She had her little best pal, Wesley, with her. Police now believe that Wesley has been dishonest about his interactions with Keeley that night. They think that there's more to the story and that perhaps he's not Keeley's friend at all, but a cold-blooded killer. Upon being taken into custody, Wesley's story begins to unravel. And originally he, tries to say that he never hurt Keeley, that when he left her, she was 100% fine. And then when he's confronted with even more evidence, he says that what actually happened, the most bizarre story I've ever heard anyone say, he said that they were messing around and he tried to jump on her back like a piggyback. They then fell and she died. He then says that he was trying to revive her by, and wait for it, massaging her head and her chest. Yes, my darling, because that's what everyone wants when they're dying, a little shiatsu. Things just aren't adding up for investigators, and this is when they pull out the big old DNA card. And the minute Wesley hears this, he completely changes his story again. He says, okay, it wasn't like that. There was no piggybacks, shockingly enough, even though we were all believing that story. He says that they were flirting and chatting. He kissed Keeley. She was loving it. Doubt that. And he then said that he asked Keeley if she wanted to have sex with him. She said yes. And the two began, He said that during sex, he then put her in a kind of chokehold from behind and that she just went limp after 10 to 30 seconds, because we all know that's the magic number for killers these days. He then said that he tried to revive her by, yet again, massaging her head and her chest, and she would not wake up. He said he panicked and therefore carried her to the brook, dumped her, and then put some leaves over her and then left. Now, police did actually ask for Wesley's phone as well and managed to track some GPS signals that had been coming from his phone that night. There was also some physical evidence that was present. For example, little Wesley had some pretty fashionable scratches right down the side of his face, as if someone had attacked him in self-defense. The GPS data that comes back from Wesley's phone is extremely eye-opening. You see, Wesley had visited the kill site not once, not twice, not 3 times a lady, not even 4 times, 5 times. He'd been back 5 times to visit the body of Keeley Bunker. So he tried to make out to investigators that this was literally just to cover her up and give her a bit more dignity. It wasn't to do that, because Keeley's body was pretty much left with a couple of branches over it, and you could still very much see everything on show. He left her half naked. There was no consideration for her dignity whatsoever. Police believe that he was going out to admire his handiwork. He was going out there to get his kicks off, and God knows what he was doing out there, because he seemed to be enjoying revisiting the crime scene. The DNA rape kit then comes back as a positive match for that of Wesley Street, and yeah, his arrest warrant is pretty much signed, sealed and delivered. He's then charged with the rape and murder of Keeley Bunker. Now, when it does go to court, he pleads not guilty because it was an accidental death, an accidental strangling, also known as the rough sex defence. I feel like we say this every week. When are they going to start learning? Just Google, Google straight biology, boys, and you'll stop saying that people can be strangled within 5 seconds. It's 2-3 minutes. We know this. 2-3 minutes. Minutes, not seconds. Okay. During the trial, Keeley's friends state that Wesley and Keeley were just friends. She friend-zoned you. Get over it. She doesn't want to be your girlfriend, son. And obviously, for reasons we now know, because you're a creepy weirdo. But her friends were adamant that there would have been no sexual chemistry. There would have been no flirting. They'd been friends since primary school. And definitely she was not interested in Wesley that way. So the idea that she would have just been like, oh yeah, let's have sex in the middle of the park, it wasn't Keeley. Also during the trial, Wesley does take the stand. And as we all know, if you are a murderer, this is the worst thing you could possibly ever do. He comes off as very arrogant, very cold. He is very nonchalant, very flippant when talking about the murder. When he's asked why he never went to police or even called an ambulance for Keeley at any point, he turns around and says, well, I had no idea how to tell them I killed my mate, did I? And it's just, what? Pardon? No one believes you. I don't even believe you, and I'm gullible, so that just says a lot. He's horrible when he's on the stand. He calls her a one-night stand, which in your dreams, son, because you're not attractive, and she was like a 10 and you were a 2, and that's how life works. The jury are asked to watch a couple of videos as well during the trial. One is CCTV from the rugby club, and also another one is footage taken from Monique's phone from the night when they were in Snobs. And the video from Snobs, you can see Keeley, she's just so effortless. She's just gorgeous. She's dancing around, partying, just cutting shapes, really happy. And then it cuts to Wes, and Wesley is like grinning like this, like psychopath, like literally like a crazy person, and he's just grinning at her, and you can just see this obsession just burning behind his eyes. They're then shown the footage from the rugby club, and this has actually never been released to the public. This is just what court documents say, is that on the video you can see Wesley and Keeley. It seems like Keeley's trying to run away from Wesley, and then he picks her up and grabs her almost in a chokehold and picks her up off the ground. And police believe that this was right before the attack took place, and that Keeley had dropped her backpack whilst trying to run from Wesley once she knew his intentions were. The two disappear into the darkness after he grabs her, and yeah, I guess the rest is pretty much history. There was actually further physical evidence as well, as if they didn't have enough already. They had blood on an ASOS t-shirt that Wes was wearing that night that he hadn't yet washed. There was also the type of foundation that Keeley worn smeared on Wes's jacket he was wearing that night. So therefore, when he was giving her, you know, the chokehold, he had actually smeared her foundation on his coat as well. And on the 5th of August 2020, Wesley Streets was found guilty of the rape and murder of Keeley Bunker. During the trial, it became quite apparent that Wesley Street was a violent predator, and 3 really brave survivors came forward during this time to explain violent attacks that had been done at the hands of Wesley himself. Now, these were really staggered over time as well. There was one in 2015 when he literally would have been about 14, 15. There was one in 2017, and then weirdly enough, there was one also the year that he murdered Keeley. So it was almost as if this was a progression of his crimes. Would there have been another murder victim? Probably. Because of these brave women coming forward, he was also additionally charged with 5 sexual offences. On the whole, Wesley was a kind of odd character. He had a very disjointed family. He had no permanent address at the time of the murder. He was kind of staying with friends, staying with family members. He had no kind of permanent base. He did seem, as a young guy, to actually have a promising life ahead of him. He received a football scholarship to play for Lichfield and Tamworth, but he messed that up too, not surprisingly. He just decided one day he didn't want to play football, and he'd given it all up to stack shelves in an Ocado supermarket, but he wasn't happy with that either. So he was strapped for cash. He was just floating from home to home. He had lost the dream of being a footballer pretty much threw his whole life away. And yeah, maybe this was the only way that he felt he could gain control again, by making women afraid of him and making him feel like a big man. On the 7th of August 2020, only 2 days after his conviction, he was actually sentenced to 30 years in prison. However, this was commuted to 29 years for time served. Keeley's family wore pink at the sentencing, another, nod to their beautiful daughter, whose favourite colour was pink. Since the heinous crime, her family have been able to channel their energy into something positive and are advocates for victims' charities such as Victim Support. This charity is amazing. They provide assistance to survivors of traumatic and violent crimes and help them to reshape their life around this one incident so that it does not define who they are, because it doesn't define who you are. Definitely, guys, this is a charity I really support, and I will put the link in the description box below, even if you want to just have a little peek, see what they're all about. The team that work for Victim Support are so selfless. They are very donation ran as well, so if you want to leave a wee donation, then by all means please do. What really messed me up about this case when reading it was that Keeley's last words to her friend were something like out of a horror movie. So Monique, her best friend, when she was leaving her house, said, "Guys, be careful," just as a general warning, just like a good friend would when, you're walking home at night. And Keeley turned around and said, "I've got Wes, I'll be fine. I've got Wes, so I'll be safe." But she wasn't safe. She was far from it. I hope you guys enjoyed this week's episode. Please give it a big thumbs up if you did. I love each and every single one of you. I know I say it every single week and you're probably like, okay Megan, like be quiet now. But I really mean this, guys. Like, I wouldn't be here without your support. You're amazing. Every time I'm doubting myself, you're there being like, no, go for it, girl. So definitely thank you so much. I love my channel. Love it to bits. I love my wee channel, my wee spooky family. Like I said, we're practically a cult now. Not actually a cult if the FBI is watching, but definitely I feel like we're such a little family now, and I love each and every one of you. I feel like I'm actually still in shock that more than 4 people actually want to watch me voluntarily. At first I actually did believe that maybe my mum was going on and creating fake YouTube accounts and being like, you're amazing. But no, now that I know it's not my mum, it's actually quite a nice feeling. Remember as well, if you're a first time watcher and you're thinking, she's not too annoying, then just hit that subscribe button. I'll be here for you every Friday and on and off every couple of Wednesdays. If you also want to know what I'm up to in my day-to-day boring white girl life, then you can feel free to follow me, not home, because we all know that's not acceptable, on Instagram at Megan True Crime. I also have a TikTok page at megan.truecrime. I want to give big kisses to all my little creepy pals out there. You know who you are. Love you. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend. Please remember, be safe, lock your doors, don't talk to strangers, and come on guys, if someone puts you in the friend zone, just accept it. If you don't like you, plenty of fish in the sea, okay? See ya! Realising I'm just spreading carcass of fly everywhere. That's enough from that.